Hey Z.
Hey Joe, how's it going?
Good. Nobody's on quite yet, but they probably will stop in shortly. I'm just going to make you the presenter and the host. I might drop off after a little bit after you've got done or after you get going. Um,
Sure.
and then recording's already started, so we should be able to go that way. Um, if nobody shows up, that sometimes happens. Still record it and pretend like people are there. And we'll have the recording for future, and other people in the company can review it too. Um,
Okay,
all
sounds
right,
good.
sounds good.
All right,
And typically, there are people who um, show up like a couple minutes in. So,
sounds good. Yeah, let
all right.
me let me prepare for it. All right,
All
I
right.
changed a little bit.
Yeah, great. Sounds good. Well,
Yeah,
hey, we can get started here. Um, So thank you everyone for coming here today for the Lunch Learn. We've got Z, who's one of our awesome firmware engineers at Dojo 5, and he's going to talk a little bit about YAML in continuous integration systems. So take it away, Z. Thanks.
all right. So I'm Z from Dojo 5, and today we're gonna talk about YAML file. So, so what is YAML file? So YAML file is a human readable, passable data serialization language. And you often see it, it is used in configuration settings, log files, internet messaging, and filtering. And on the latest YAML versions 1.2, it is now in compliance with JSON as an official subset. That means one can be mapped or converted to another. And here is a fun fact. When YAML was first introduced in 2001, it was yet another markup language, but in the coming years, they decided to distinguish it from document markup. They repurposed the name to YAML in markup language. It's a recursive acronym that gonna loop forever. So to learn YAML, we start with the basic syntax. So indentation is an important concept of YAML. It defines the structure and only spaces allowed, no tabs. If you use tabs, it will throw an error. And there is no limit to how many spaces, but we suggest to use 2 spaces. Um, and there is a optional indication um, of the start and end of a YAML file. To start, you can use 3 dash, and then to end, you can use 3 dot, but it's optional. And to do a comment on your YAML file, you should start with hash. So on your left, on your right, there is a simple YAML file. You can see there is the indication of start and an end. We have comment, and we have two sections of data here that I will go into details in the coming slides. So, so the next concept is list. So all member of a list must have the same indentation level, starting with a dash, followed by a space. So on the picture, you can see, so this is the YAML indentation rules, and we have 2 members of the rules. So they are all string, the only space, and no tabs. And the list can be represented in another form, which is on the right side. So they are equal. So the next concept is dictionary. So this is the basically what you see in YAML, a YAML file. So represented by key value pairs, a column followed by a space, and then the value can be numbers, boolean, strings, lists, etc. So can on your right, so it's one of the section I pull out from earlier, and then employee two, and then so the name and positions are strings. The values are strings. And then working experience in years is the integer, the numbers, and then skill set is a list of skill sets. And this can be represented in a different form as well, like the list. So this is it. And so speaking of the string in dictionary, it doesn't require quotes, as you can see from previous example. And if you want to use them, still you can still using the quotes. And there are two style of writing the string. You can use the literal style, which is denoted by upright slash. So all the lines will be break up in new lines. And if you want them to fold up in a paragraph, you use the greater than sign. So now we talk about some advanced syntax. So the first is anchors and aliases. So it's like a private function. So the data can be reused throughout the whole YAML file. And you will see in the next slide. The anchors use the ampersand symbol and the aliases use asterisk. So here's an example of, so we have a data, directed data that we anchor with name and last name. And then, so somewhere throughout the YAML file, we have a movie sections that we want to dereference that data and put it in. For example, like the list of movies. And the YAML file will interpret as the following. Basically, it dereference all the data and put it inside the section. So now you have all the data about the directors of each movies. So the next thing is called map merging. It uses a shift left symbol. It used together with the anchors and aliases. It basically do the same thing, but it will if the key is already exists, that will override what you insert. So over here we have an example of how that works. So on your left, there are four there are four dictionary that we define and anchor it. So you will see center with X, Y, and then left, big and small. And there are another four member in this list that they are actually the same if you dereference the data. So the first one is the default that you can see X1, Y2, R10, and labels is center big. And then when we merge in center, it basically dereference the X1 and Y2 into that that sections, and you will get the same as the first member over here. And we don't have to do only one map. We can do multiple maps as well. So for the second example on your right, it basically map center and big into the current map. And basically bring in X1, Y1, and R10 into the member, and it became the same as the first one. And for the last one is to show how it overrides when we use mapping. So we can see X1 is already exists in current map. So if we insert anything about X, it will be override by the X1 over here. So we insert big, which is R10. So there we have it, R10. And then left, X is 0 and Y is 2. So the X1 will actually overwrites X0. So we have X1, Y2, and R10 now. And last, when a small comes in and R is already exists in big, so R10 actually overwrites R1. Yep. So now we learned about some syntax about YAML. Now we move on to why YAML is used in CI/CD pipelines. So the first reason is it gives a unified development experience. You create multi-stage pipelines in a single YAML file, and it commits to the source control with the project, and you get the benefits of history, diff, rollback, etc. And to duplicate the pipeline, since it is a text, you can basically copy and paste, and you will create a new pipeline. So different CI/CD platform has different CI/CD configuration file. So GitLab has GitLab CI YAML, and then Bitbucket has its own, Travis CI has its own, and Circuit as well. So today we're gonna talk about GitLab CI. So first thing first, this is how a pipeline looks like. And it has different stages. We have like build stages that build your code, analyze it, test it with unit tests, and document it with Doxygen. So how to create this pipeline? So, which is the YAML file that creates that pipeline. So we started with, on your left is a very simple CI YAML file. So first thing is the stages that we define, what stages we have and the ordering of it. So when you do like build, test, and deploy, build stages, the job on build stages will run first. And then once it passed, we go to test, and then we to deploy. Just like the previous slides that we tell all the stages. And so over there, we have a build job. So we name the job at the very first line. We name it build. We can name it other as well. Like here, we name it build underscore sem70 underscore x. So depends on, you can customize it. But the stage, you have to based on what you define in the stages earlier. So we define it as build, and then we have the Docker image on the image keywords. So the image you can use directly from Docker Hubs, or you can create your own and push it to the GitLab registry. And we have the script sections that runs all the builds, all the operations. And I will explain more in the next slides. And then we have the artifacts. That's basically you point the path to your build artifacts, and GitLab will actually push that to GitLab, and then you can download the artifacts and use it right away. So if the required environments cannot be implemented by Docker image, such as maybe you're dealing with Windows environments, so you can create an on-prem or a cloud version machines, and register a GitLab runner on the machines and set a name for it. So after that, you can use that. You can tell the job by writing the tag keywords and give the name. It will find the runner and run your scripts on that on the machines. All right. So we're gonna talk about script. So a script section is sometimes it can be only one command, and you can have an array of them, and it will be run by the shell by the pipeline runners. Um, so if any of the commands return an non-zero exit code, the job will fail, and the rest of the commands will not be executed. So for example, when you run the build script over here, and then it failed due to some errors, and then the Python script will not be run. And on the pipelines, it will show that your pipeline actually failed due to the reasons. And then we're gonna talk about extends keyword in GitLab. So it is basically the combinations of anchors, aliases, and the map merging. So you can use them in GitLab YAML as well, but YAML has uh, GitLab has put some effort into this keyword. Basically, all you have to do is use the extend keyword, and you can basically put your data into your job, like create a template for it and actually expand it to your job. So on your right side, we have an example of build job template that can be used throughout the YAML file. And inside your real your job, basically you do a extend keywords and put the template you want to extend to. So when using the extend like templates, we can go with make use of the variables keywords over here. So basically, when you define a variables here, and it will be used, like it will be expand um, inside the templates. Like the output there over here, we assign it to a build output there, like an example. And as a result, it will be used inside the artifacts path. And so variables, you can define globally, or if you define globally, it can be used throughout the whole YAML file. And you can define in a per job and only recognized by the job. So there is a list, a huge list of predefined variables that provided by GitLab, such as you can get a commit char, the reference name, and sometimes you can even get the commit message by without using any git command, just dereference that variables and we'll get the message. But when you define your own, the user own variables, be careful with the naming, because if you get the same name, it will overwrite the global one. Next, we're gonna talk about include keywords, which is like the header file. So you can include an external YAML file into your current YAML file, just like header file. You can do it from a local project, a different project, a remote URL, or a template provided by GitLab. So on your right, there is an example of include a local YAML file. So the YAML file has to be, the external one has to be, has to have the extension of .yml or .yaml. So currently the include keywords doesn't support the variable expansions, which I mentioned earlier. The like the variables keywords. So we're gonna talk about the if-else statements of your job. Like in GitLab, it use only accept keywords. So basically, is to include or exclude a job when a condition is fulfilled. So there are some special keywords that you can use for a job. So such as branches, tags, and then merge requests, etc. When you do branches, for example, on only keywords, it only run your job when the commit push is on a branch. So there are some advanced usage of only except, like you can use with refs, variables, or changes. So rest basically pretty much the same as like the branches and tag keywords. And you can use, for example, on your right, you can set it to master. So only run the job when you push to master. And if you use like changes, that means when a file in your project change, then the job will run. So next, rules, it is pretty much like only accept, but it's more flexible. It does the same thing, include and exclude jobs, and then rules and only accept cannot be used in conjunction, or else the job will fail with errors. And so it has developed some rules clauses, such as if, changes, and exist. So if is the same as the only accept variables from earlier, and then changes, yep, it is same as the only accept changes. And the exist is the new one. So it means if a file exists, then you run the job. And you can add some there are some job attributes that you can add to each clauses, such as when keywords or allow failure keywords. So for when, they have like default if you didn't set it up. So by default, when will be on success. That means if prior stages, the job from prior stages success, then only run this job. You can change it to on failure or always. So always is even the previous job fail, you still run this job. And for the allow failure, it's always it default to false. That means when this job is fail, the pipeline will fail. So if you set it to true, so even though this job is failed, it will give a warning, but the pipeline will continue. So here are some examples of like how we use rules. So on the top one, we have a unit test job, and then the script basically just echo but the rules. So each of the if statement, it will look for the first one. If the first one doesn't pass, it will go to the next one, and so on. So the first one, you will check for the commit message, whether enable unit test keywords is inside your message. If it doesn't, it go to the next one. If it is a merge request event, if it is not, go to the last one. If the commit tag has the release dash keywords, if it has, then it will run the unit test job. And then below, we have two different other rules, such as the changes. If the Docker file has any changes, then we rebuild the Docker image. Or if it exists, then we build that again. So, some side notes about commit message. If you include a CI skip or a skip CI in your commit message, the commit will be created, but the pipeline will be skipped. It's just a good to know things when you work on CI pipelines. So when I work on YAML file, I find that some validator will come in handy to make sure the YAML file is valid before you push it up. So GitLab has its own, and you can get it on their GitLab page. Basically, the CI link is the validator. And then for Bitbucket, you can find it online as well. So basically, you just copy your whole YAML file and paste it inside, and it will tell you whether it is valid or invalid, and the reasons as well. Yep. So there you have it. The very basic introductions to YAML file and its use in CI pipelines. Thank you.